an ordinary flight, a trusted aircraft, and then silence. 62 souls, a routine trip, but at 17,000 feet, something unseen was waiting for them, an invisible threat no one could escape. What caused an experienced crew to lose control, and could this tragedy have been avoided? This is the story of Brazil's deadliest aviation disaster in years, and the lessons it leaves behind.
August 9th, 2024. A routine domestic flight in Brazil turns into a nightmare. Voepass Flight 2283, an ATR 72500, departs Cascavel, Paraná, bound for Guarulhos, São Paulo. But just minutes before landing, something goes terribly wrong. The aircraft stalls at 17,000 feet, enters a flat spin, and plummets toward the ground. No one survives. This is the story of Voepass Flight 2283, Brazil's deadliest aviation disaster in nearly 2 decades. What went wrong? And could this tragedy have been prevented? Flight 2283 was a scheduled domestic flight operated by Voepass Linhas Aéreas, a Brazilian regional airline specializing in short-haul routes. On board were 62 people, 58 passengers, and 4 crew members. Leading the flight was Captain Danilo Santos Romano, a 35-year-old pilot with extensive experience flying ATR aircraft. He had logged over 7,500 flight hours, many of them on the ATR 72500, and was known for his calm demeanor and professionalism. His co-pilot, First Officer Humberto Alencar e Silva, was 61 years old, a veteran in Brazilian aviation with decades of experience. Together, they had safely guided countless flights through Brazil's skies. Assisting them in the cabin were Debra Soper Avila, a 28-year-old flight attendant, and Rubia Silva de Lima, 41 years old, both dedicated professionals, trained to ensure passenger safety and comfort. Among the 58 passengers, there was a diverse mix of travelers. 8 doctors, including 6 oncologists, were en route to a cancer research conference in São Paulo, eager to share their knowledge and advance medical science. 4 university professors from Western Paraná State University and 2 staff members from the Federal University of Technology Paraná were also aboard, their minds filled with academic discussions and research. Tragically, none of them would make it to their destination. At least 10 ticketed passengers had missed the flight, not because of delays, but because they were waiting at the wrong gate. A simple mistake, a moment of confusion, had unknowingly saved their lives. At approximately 13:21 BRT, Flight 2283 was cruising at 17,000 feet, following its planned route toward Guarulhos International Airport. The passengers, unaware of the danger ahead, were settling into the final stretch of their journey. Some were reading, others were chatting, and a few were dozing off. But outside the aircraft, something invisible was forming, a silent, deadly threat. The ATR 72500 had entered an area of severe icing conditions, a phenomenon where supercooled water droplets in the clouds freeze upon contact with the aircraft's surfaces. The electronic ice detector illuminated an amber warning light, signaling that ice was accumulating on the wings. The pilots, Captain Danilo Santos Romano and First Officer Humberto Alencar e Silva, immediately activated the propeller anti-icing system, a standard procedure in such conditions. Moments later, they engaged the airframe de-icing system, designed to remove ice from the aircraft's leading edges. But something was wrong. The de-icing system failed to operate properly, and ice continued to build up. The ATR 72500, like all aircraft, relies on smooth airflow over its wings to generate lift. But as ice accumulated, it disrupted this airflow, reducing the aircraft's ability to stay aloft. The pilots noticed a drop in airspeed, a dangerous sign that the aircraft was losing lift. They attempted to increase power, but the situation deteriorated rapidly. Then, the unthinkable happened. The aircraft stalled, meaning it lost the ability to maintain controlled flight. Instead of a normal descent, Flight 2283 entered a flat spin, a terrifying condition where the plane spirals downward with little forward motion. Unlike a conventional spin where the nose points downward, a flat spin keeps the aircraft nearly level, making recovery extremely difficult. Inside the cockpit, alarms blared. The pilots fought desperately to regain control, but the ATR 72500 was now falling at over 9,000 feet per minute, a rate far beyond normal descent profiles. The aircraft was spinning uncontrollably, making it nearly impossible to recover. On the ground, residents of Vinhedo looked up and saw the aircraft twisting violently in the sky, its engines roaring as it spiraled downward. Some described it as a falling leaf, while others said it looked like a frisbee spinning in slow motion. Witnesses reported hearing a deep, unsettling rumble, followed by a thunderous explosion as the aircraft impacted the ground. At around 13:22 BRT, Flight 2283 crashed into a residential area in Vinhedo, São Paulo, leaving behind a scene of devastation. The impact was so severe that no one on board survived. The investigation begins. Within hours of the crash, the Brazilian Aeronautical Accidents Investigation and Prevention Center, CENIPA, dispatched a team of investigators to the crash site in Vinhedo, São Paulo. Their mission? To determine what went wrong and whether this tragedy could have been prevented. The wreckage was scattered across a residential area, with debris embedded in buildings and streets. The impact had been so severe that few recognizable parts of the aircraft remained intact. Despite the devastation, investigators quickly located the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, the two critical devices that would reveal the final moments of Flight 2283. Once recovered, the black boxes were sent to CENIPA's laboratory for analysis. The cockpit voice recorder revealed the pilot's frantic attempts to regain control. In the final minutes, Captain Danilo Santos Romano and First Officer Humberto Alencar A. Silva were heard discussing icing buildup and struggling with the aircraft's de-icing system. Their voices, initially calm, became increasingly urgent as the ATR 72500 lost lift and entered a flat spin. The flight data recorder confirmed that the aircraft had been flying through an area of severe icing conditions, with temperatures ranging from -4 degrees Fahrenheit to -31 degrees Fahrenheit. The electronic ice detector had illuminated an amber warning light signaling ice accumulation. The pilots activated the propeller anti-icing system and attempted to engage the airframe de-icing system, but the system failed to operate properly. On September 7, 2024, CENIPA released its preliminary report outlining the initial findings. The report confirmed that ice buildup was a major factor in the crash. The ATR 72500 is equipped with de-icing systems, but in extreme conditions, they may not be sufficient. Investigators noted that the aircraft's stall warning system had activated seconds before the flat spin, but by then, recovery was nearly impossible. The ATR 72500's high wing design makes it particularly vulnerable to wing icing, which can disrupt airflow and lead to a catastrophic loss of lift. Training and decision-making experts also questioned whether the pilots had received adequate training for handling severe icing conditions. While both pilots were experienced, the captain had only 665 hours on type, meaning he had limited experience flying the ATR 72-500 in extreme weather. The first officer, with over 3,500 hours on type, had more familiarity with the aircraft, but the situation escalated too quickly for standard recovery procedures. Sanipa's report raised concerns about Voepass Linhas Aéreas training protocols. This tragedy raises critical questions about aviation safety, questions that demand answers. Could better pilot training have prevented the crash? The ATR 72-500 is a reliable aircraft, but flying in severe icing conditions requires quick decision-making and precise handling. Did the pilots receive adequate simulator training for extreme icing scenarios? Were they fully prepared to handle a situation where the de-icing system failed to operate properly? Should airlines rethink their procedures for flying in icing conditions? The ATR 72-500's high-wing design makes it particularly vulnerable to ice buildup. Should airlines adjust altitude restrictions when flying through known icing zones? Should more stringent weather monitoring be required before dispatching flights into areas with active SIGMED advisories for severe icing? In the wake of the disaster, Brazil's National Civil Aviation Agency, ANAC, launched a comprehensive review of Voepass Linhas Aéreas safety protocols. By March 2025, ANAC had suspended all Voepass flight operations, citing systematic failures in regulatory compliance and a degradation in the airline's safety management system. The investigation uncovered serious irregularities, including previously identified safety concerns that had not been properly addressed. Despite corrective action orders issued in October 2024, Voepass failed to implement necessary changes effectively. This raised serious concerns about the airline's ability to ensure passenger safety in the long term. For the families of the 62 victims, these questions remain painfully unanswered. Their loved ones boarded Flight 2283 expecting a routine journey, never knowing they would never arrive. In the aftermath, memorials were held across Brazil, with families demanding greater transparency in the investigation. Some called for stricter regulations on aircraft de-icing systems, while others pushed for mandatory simulator training for pilots flying in icing conditions. But one thing is certain: every aviation disaster teaches lessons that can save lives in the future. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, consider subscribing for more in-depth aviation investigations. Together, we can uncover the truth behind aviation disasters and ensure that history never repeats itself.